For 25 years now, Jane Goodall has been travelling to raise awareness about the destruction of the forests and the bushmeat trade that are threatening the very survival of chimpanzees. 100 years ago, there were estimated to be 2 million chimpanzees. Now, there are fewer than 200,000. When I talked to her, I asked Jane Goodall whether her relationship with chimpanzees had changed her entire way of thinking.
You know, this, of course, is what a lot of people feel, that because chimpanzees are more like us than anything else, because we share over 98% of our DNA with them, that they would have really changed my thinking about animals. But my thinking about animals was crystallized when I was as young as 10, 11, 12, by a great teacher that I had when I was a child, who taught me that animals indeed have personalities, they have minds capable of thinking, and they have emotions, happiness and sadness and so forth. And that teacher was my dog, Rusty. So even when I first got to the chimpanzees and began to learn about them and be amazed at all the skills they showed and all the characteristics they had, which we used to think unique to ourselves, I'd started off with the right attitude towards other animals with whom we share the planet.
And then, of course, all that Rusty taught you was strengthened, wasn't it, by your relationship with chimpanzees?
Absolutely, because, you know, the chimpanzees are so like us in so many of the ways they behave, you know, their close family relations, the communication with kissing, embracing, holding hands, patting on the back, swaggering. They live for over 50 years sometimes, and close family bonds that can last through life. And all of this just strengthened my conviction that there is not that much difference between us and them. And the longer we stay at Gombe, and there's still a research team there, the more we find out, and the more I feel convinced that we are just a part of and not separate.
Also, of course, obviously, what you have seen and what you have learnt has challenged the way most of us live with animals, hasn't it?
I think in some cases, yes, because, you know, one of the first battles I had when I started writing about Gombe, remember, I hadn't been to college at all. I didn't even have an undergraduate degree. I just went out with Louis Leakey's blessing. After I'd been in the field for about a year, Louis Leakey, my mentor, who trusted in this young girl with no degree of any kind, said I had to get a degree. Wasn't time for a BA. He got me a place in Cambridge University to do a PhD in ethology, and I didn't even know what ethology meant back then. And so I got there, and I was told by the professors I'd done everything wrong. I shouldn't have given the chimpanzees names, many of them said, and certainly not talk about personality, mind, or feeling, because those were unique to us. And thinking back to what I'd learned from Rusty, I had the courage of my conviction, and my first major battle really was writing a paper for Nature. And everywhere in that paper where I'd put he or she, or who or whom, that was crossed out, and the editor had put it and which. So I was completely horrified, and I crossed out the its and the whiches and won that battle. And after that, you know, it's been a long battle to get people to understand how arrogant we've been. And we've accepted evolution, most people have, and the sort of gradual transformation of the physical body. But it's been very hard for many people to realize that there's also a moral evolution, a spiritual evolution, and that intellectually, although we're far superior to the chimpanzees, nevertheless, it's a change of degree and not kind.
One of the things which seems to come through a lot of what you said is that your view of animals teaches you that we must be more humble.
Yes, I think a lot of the problem has been arrogance. A lot of it stems back to the piece in Genesis which says man has dominion over the birds, the fishes, and so forth. And that was a wrong translation of the Hebrew word, which was actually more like stewardship and the wise rule of a kind king. And that, I think, has led to a lot of mistreatment of animals, along with feeling, from the old behaviorist tradition that they're just responding to stimuli and that they don't have emotions. Well, we know now that they do. And I think more people are beginning to accept it.
And should that make us realize that we are less unique than we think we are?
Yeah, we are less unique. Of course we are unique. Every animal has its own uniqueness. And ours is a rather special kind of uniqueness because with all the similarities between us and chimpanzees, there's a major difference. We know now that intellectually chimpanzees can be taught to communicate using a human-type language with sign language or with a computer. But we seem to be the only animal that's developed this sophisticated use of words so that we can talk about things that aren't present. I could tell stories which, if I did it right, would make you feel you were with me in Gombe, even though you'd never been in an African forest. We can make plans. We could make a plan that you would interview me in 10 years' time if we're still alive. That's, as far as we know, unique to us. And I think that this is what's triggered our intellect. So, yeah, chimpanzees and many other animals can do things we used to think unique to us, but you can't compare even the brightest of chimpanzees with a normal human intellect, let alone an Einstein. But doesn't this put us in a position of responsibility with our greater ability to understand what's happening to the planet and our role in the destruction of so much that's beautiful?
Jane, do chimpanzees have a sense of God?
Well, a lot of people are, as we one by one showed that they could do things we used to think unique to ourselves, the questions came like, do they have a soul? Do they have religion? Deep in the forest at Gombe, there are incredible waterfalls. And this one waterfall, the water drops 80 feet. It's worn for itself a groove in the sheer rock. So as it falls 80 feet, it displaces the air and the ferns are waving in the wind and the spray is blowing. And the chimpanzees, as they hear the roar of the water, very often do these incredible waterfall displays or dances, swaying from foot to foot, leaping up, swinging out on the vines into the spray. And sometimes at the end you see them sitting, watching the falling water and watching as it runs past. And you just feel if they had words, if they could talk about this sense of what I can only believe is wonder and awe at one of these manifestations of nature, that this could lead to one of the early primitive naturalistic religions, the worship of the elements.